Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns and today we're going to take a look at a potential new gold mine coming in 3.19. Salvage made its debut with hull stripping in 3.18, but 3.19 is bringing with it the first iteration of component stripping. Myself and some of the folks from Frontier ran a few initial tests of this and the new salvage contracts last night, and while it's still early days, I wanted to share some of the cool stuff we've learned so far. So if that sounds good to you, grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, and then let's get into it. So let's make a start by taking a look at the salvage contracts, which will appear in your contract manager. They come in three flavors: legal, illegal, and lawless, or as I'm thinking about them, Korma, Boona, and Vindaloo. Legal contracts, the Korma, are going to appear on the main page, and in these you're effectively just buying the location of a wreck off an information broker. The wrecks are located at the Lagrange points dotted around Stanton, and the contract's going to provide you with details about the type of ship up for grabs and its location so you can work out what's worth travelling to. If you're willing to pay the credits, then the broker will sell you and only you the marker for the ship, and you'll be able to head there and strip it. Importantly though, when you take the mission, the derelict wreck is physicalized, so you'll have to beware of claim jumpers who might move in on you. Problems compounded here by the fact that these wrecks can spawn quite close in towards space stations and right next to other wrecks. So we had a mildly hilarious episode when a guy called JFA wandered onto our hammerhead and started salvaging it. Little did we know that he was busy doing a stream at the time and had chat closed, so he was understandably a little confused when, after our calls to get off our wreck were ignored, we opened fire. I just feel a bit bad since I've chatted to him since, and I now know that he was doing a birthday stream, so if you can do me a favour and go show him some love by subscribing to his channel, which I'll post a link to down below, that would really help me in restoring my karma. But anyway, back to the salvage contracts. So these contracts can cost from as little as 1,000 credits for ships like a 300 series, Eclipse, or a Titan, and they go up to 50,000 credits for things like Caterpillars, Starfarers, and Hammerheads. There are a few in-betweens, things like Connies and Moles, but we'll have to really develop some more detail on those over time. More investment though equals a greater potential prize. If you like things a little bit more spicy, then we've also got the illegal missions, or the Boonas. And these appear under your personal contracts section within the salvage area there. I'm going to have to make some assumptions here because while I've been able to see these pop up, I haven't managed to get one to actually stick, so that's a bug report that I've got to file. But ultimately I think these are going to be very similar in nature to the legal variant, but you're now running against the clock according to the mission description. These are time sensitive, giving you approximately half an hour to get in and strip down the wreck before security forces turn up to investigate. All of this obviously requires a lot of further testing ahead of a major salvage guide I've got planned for 3.19. I'm going to hazard a guess that the potential reward from the illegal missions is higher than the potential return from the legal variant, since theoretically on the legal side, you've got unlimited time to salvage. And finally though, we've got the Vindaloo, the lawless mission. So this 150,000 credit contract will also appear in your personal tab, inviting you to head out to the site of a battle and salvage to your heart's content. The catch here is that you're not the only people these unscrupulous data brokers have sold the info to. And considering the wrecks here populate in dead space below the main system plane, I'm sure that these missions are going to get very spicy indeed when two industrial factions have each invested 150k in the information. But now that we've established what these missions actually are and what they offer you, it's time to also look at the new mechanics which make these a potential gold mine for 3.19. Ultimately, the economics of a lot of these missions don't make total sense purely in terms of the RMC that you salvage, so thankfully 3.19 offers you another profit to be had in the form of components. So first up, when you arrive at a wreck, you're going to want to head into EVA and get yourself inside it. And if you haven't already, once you hit the seat, you're going to want to bind a hotkey for unlock all ports. You'll find this in the vehicle's cockpit section of the key bindings just here. Hitting this hotkey is then going to unlock the item ports for physicalized components. Now this can vary a bit ship to ship, but on the vast majority you're going to find it's mostly the weapons that you can now detach. If you pull out your tractor beam, you'll now notice that you have two modes, tractor and detach. You can switch between these using the alternative fire select mode, which is B. And using this detach mode will allow you to interact with items such as the guns. The arrow here indicates the direction that you need to pull in order to safely detach it from the ship. Now theoretically, if you had a weapons port of the same size as this on your ship, you could also open up the ports on your vehicle, detach your weapon and slap this one on in its place. So this does lead to some really cool potential where you could switch out guns on the fly. Maybe if you run out of your ballistic ammo, you can switch it for laser repeaters that you find on another ship. However, I've got a better idea, and that's turning these guns into cash. So instead I'm going to just store these into my ship, placing them down on the cargo grid ideally. So once you've taken the guns and the missiles, if you're really in this for every single credit, you can also scrape the hull to net yourself the RMC. However, as we'll see in a minute, the RMC value is actually the smaller part of the payout in most cases. The money's really in the weapons here. You've got a convenient meter at the top of the screen which indicates how much salvage is left in the wreck, so that just gives you a good idea of when it's time to move on. And one of the things which definitely pops up from the mission descriptions here is that there's no penalty for abandoning the mission. They literally tell you, when you're done with it, you abandon it, there's no penalty. That will just help you keep your map nice and clear. And once you've looted everything that you want to loot, you can then go ahead and take those to a station or a major landing zone, ideally one which has a ship's weapons shop as well. And here it works the same way as other loot does, or the loot that we've seen in bunker missions. If you can find a shop which is selling the exact part that you've looted off the ship, then you go get a better price than selling it to a ship weapons store that doesn't sell that particular gun. So roughly speaking, if you find a ship weapons store which doesn't sell the gun that you've got to sell, they'll give you just over 25% of the value. However, if you can find one which sells the exact gun, then they'll give you just over 50% of the value. So since we had a few of us on last night, myself, Lionsmane and Slash decided to take on one of the bigger derelicts, buying the rights to a hammerhead for 50k. And we used my Cutty Black as a cargo ship and brought a vulture along for the scraping. So we began by cracking the ports open and relieving the hammerhead of its 24 size 4 Rhino repeaters. I can confirm that 24 Rhinos do fit inside a Cutlass Black, even if it's a little bit of a push. So while Lions and Slash then carried on stripping down the hull, I ran these guns back to the nearby station at Hurrell 2, which incredibly conveniently has itself a ship's weapons store, and they do stock the Rhinos. So here you can now see we're being offered roughly 12k for each of these guns, which compares pretty favourably with their 21k buy price. And after I sell the first one, it does drop to 11k, but I did some quick maths to check and I was actually getting about 11,900 credits per gun. So all in all, the 24 Rhinos off that hammerhead sold for about 285k. Now we ran into a bit of a bug with the vulture lasers some way through. It wouldn't be Star Citizen without a few of those. But we did also manage to scrape 19 SCU worth of RMC off the hull, which would have netted us a further 142.5k, making the total payout for this little test trip about 427.5 thousand. We reckon that had we not ran into the bug with the lasers, we could have pushed it north of 500k, and we could have maybe got even more out of things if we'd been using a reclaimer rather than a vulture. But all in all, that 50k we paid for the contract was roughly a 10% cost. And even if you ditched the RMC and just took the weapons, you could be looking at a 235k return on your 50k investment. Which, considering that part only took us about 20 minutes with just myself and Slash working together while Lionsmane ate his dinner, it could definitely add up to some very nice credits per hour for a couple of crewmates. And where multi-crew groups will benefit from these higher cost contracts, I'd encourage people, in particular solo players, not to sleep on the cheaper contracts. The 1000 credit 300i I was taking apart earlier yielded 3 guns that sold for approximately 20k and about 2 SCU of RMC, which would add 15k more to the yield. So that's 34k profit for not too much work. But these types of returns put into context the risky missions where you'll be salvaging an entire fleet of ships. And the potential return from a collection like this for a well-organised group is through the roof. The one we visited had multiple large wrecks including hammerheads, starfarers and a reclaimer. So with the right equipment to take advantage of the resources, you're probably looking at millions of credits worth of components and material from these sites. Just be aware of the risks that you're taking though. There's no common way out of these missions, and while on a good day even a small group might get lucky, find zero resistance and take away a huge payday, you might pay out 150k on other days and arrive to find an org determined to take every credit worth of value out of the site. While you're mid-salvage, a larger group might turn up and not be too happy about letting you leave with a large portion of the finite amount of loot. But to me this is the really exciting part about being in an open world. Those moments where you make it out by the skin of your teeth and are laughing all the way to the bank, and those days when you lingered a little bit too long trying to squeeze one more gun on board your ship, and you just lost everything. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and it was a good first glimpse at a potential new Goldmine coming with 319. There's a lot more work to do to really dig into these, but I'm always keen to share first impressions where I can. And if you're keen to keep up with the additional testing and deeper analysis we do around this and other loops, please consider hitting subscribe and dropping a like if you enjoyed the vid. It really helps me out a massive amount. For me, the salvage loop has always been an exciting one, but this update to the mechanics has it shaping up to be a lot more what I was hoping for. I love the feeling of EVAing aboard these derelict ships, searching for any leftover cargo and stripping all of the parts. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the game loop evolves further over time. I think one thing that CIG have really nailed with these missions is providing gameplay for everyone from solo salvagers to groups. And so some of us might want to tackle some of the riskier end of things, or we might even want to focus on making your own wrecks to salvage and loot like we have in the past. And if you're keen to try out what larger group play has to offer, please do join us over on Discord and we'll be able to get you into a team. The link's just down in the vid description below. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.